an issue that lots of people are talking about. To me, you're not seeing a lot on, as I say, legacy media, the Detroit TV stations or the newspapers as of yet, vaccines. And joining me right now, Monica Yatuma of the Great Education Initiative, correct? Good to see you.
Yes. Hey, Dave, nice to see you again.
Yeah, so this won't be on Facebook because I can't say the word vaccine on Facebook. I'll be taken down. So I'm a parent, and in the state of Michigan, when a child's born, they get vaccines, and then when you go to school, or you're supposed to get certain vaccines. But in Michigan currently, you can opt out, right? As a parent,
you can. You actually have three different ways in Michigan to opt out, which is kind of nice options.
Oh. So, and it can be on several different things, religious or medical, or just the parent does not want the child, right?
So, yeah. So you religious, medical, and then the third one's philosophical. Okay. I don't believe in it for X, Y, and Z reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's legislation that was introduced in the Michigan House by the Democrats that have changed this. And then now there's lots of arguments over what this legislation says. What do you know about it?
So here's what we know. It's interesting the way they're doing it. They've spread it out through a few different bills. It's 5 different bills. So it's 62, it's House Bill HB 6205 all the way to 6210. So 6205, 6206, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. And so 2 of them are going through the health committee. 2 of them are going through the education committee. And then there's one that affects business owners. This one's interesting to me. They're pushing it through the regulatory committee, which I think that's a strange one. But in my mind, I'm thinking they're doing that to be a little more sneaky about it, to pass it through a little easier. That's my thought process there, because that's a weird committee to put that through.
So I wrote an article on this on my locals and on my Substack, and the headline I had was proposed Michigan legislation would impose stricter requirements for parents seeking vaccine exemptions. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. So right now, and I have in here religious exemptions. They want to make it tougher. And they say, when I'll bring it up, Representative Phil Skaggs, a Democrat, wrote, it simply codifies the rules on waivers implemented by Governor Snyder and gives parents info about contagious disease safety in their kids' schools. But other representatives and yourself say it does more than that, right?
Well, it does. So like if we talk about, I'm looking at it right now, House Bill 6206, and that one's going through, I believe that's one of the ones going to go through Education Committee, because this changes the revised school code. So it's about vaccinations, but it's about vaccinations in the education setting. Sorry. This is the bill, again, 6206, that's literally removing religious and other, which is philosophical language entirely. Like it's just taking it out. And so technically that would go against state and federal constitution. You can't violate somebody's religious rights. We know that much. And this one's kind of tied in with 6205, which is revising the public health code, except the difference is 6206 is geared to the education setting, if that makes sense. Because right now, the way we're set up is that if you want to go to school, preschool and kindergarten, right through 12th grade, you have to make an appointment at your local, the health office, right? So they have a nurse that's like on site. You make an appointment and say, hey, I need to get a vaccine waiver. So they'll make you make this appointment and sit down, and they'll tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't do this. But then at the end of it, you still have your choice. And if you want to go through it, you say, I want a religious waiver. I need a philosophical, or whatever it is. You sign, they sign, you're done. That's the process right now. That's what they want to take away. They want to say, we're only going to allow medical exemptions, but they want to even scrutinize and monitor even the medical exemptions and the doctors that would be writing them. So they're going to make it very difficult.
Sorry, I have a dog barking in the background. Okay. I don't know if you can hear that. So yeah, and I mean, and that goes against what Representative Skaggs says. It's simply codifying the rules, which it sounds it's different than that. Then why, if that's the case, it just, first of all, people who've looked at my article and they look at the legislation, the average person has no idea how to read legislation, because this is so, you almost need to be a lawyer. It's so difficult to understand. you've seen legislation, you've been through this before, but the average person, if you were to give them these bills, they have no idea what they're reading. I mean, it's difficult even for me to go through it all. That's part of the problem, I think, too.
They definitely don't use layman's terms. I'll tell you that. It took me, I don't know, probably a full year of trying to read bills and understand bills for me to understand their language and to actually be able to read in between the lines. When you're reading a bill, a lot of times the thing is it comes down to interpretation, right? And so that's another area where we need to be careful. So, and I think sometimes, depending on the bill or what they're trying to do, that's kind of done purposefully.
Yeah.
So, but yes, they're not easy to read, not to the average person, but I mean, it's black and white. We have it right here.
What are you hearing from parents? Everyone I'm hearing from says we've had, there's no reason to change anything really right now. Why is this coming about? Just like a lot of legislation.
So here's the thing. Right now we're in a lame duck session, right? And so the nice thing about Michigan is that 2 years ago we lost the majority, which wasn't fun. And it's the first time in 40 years that happened to us. And so for 2 years they've been able to pass through and do whatever they want without anybody being able to stop them, unfortunately. They have now lost that majority. And so in this lame duck session, and what all that is that means we're in a lame duck session until the new legislators take their roles. So they're trying to just ram through whatever they can. And this is just one of those things. And I think some of the goals here, so the exemption rate in Michigan, I know is really high and they want it to be less than 5%. So I know that's one of their goals. And then behind the scenes, we don't know who's taking money from, pharmaceutical lobbyists or anything like that to their campaign contributions. And we don't know what any of that looks like. And I'm sure we can dive into that because all of that is public information.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's usually an agenda behind all this because forcing families to not have a choice in whether to vaccinate their child or not, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect the person sitting across from you or next to you. So the question becomes then, why are we doing this? What is the hidden ulterior motive here? That's my thought process.
Yeah, and they will argue it's to have a healthier Michigan.
But who's to say that's true? Where's the science that supports that? Because right now there's tons of science that says unvaccinated kids are actually showing to be healthier than the vaccinated. They have way less chronic conditions and they actually are showing to have stronger immune systems.
Yeah, and what I'm learning a lot lately is our food supply and what we're eating is one of the major problems too. But
that's a whole other topic for another day.
That's a whole other story. So in the meantime, what can people do? We always say call or email lawmakers. Does it really matter when they do that, or should people do that, or what can change the hearts and minds of lawmakers, if anything?
So, for me, being one of the co-founders of the Great Education Initiative and actually being the director of Great Education Action, where we're more politically charged, for me, the conversation goes like this. It's get in line with your constituents or the next election cycle, we're going to run somebody against you, right? But for a regular constituent, and that's what I was before all this,
Yeah.
I would call and I would email and I would say, please call me back because I want to have a conversation with you. Like I would say, absolutely bombard them with the calls and the emails, even if you think that they're not going to listen, because I think if they get a certain amount of people calling and saying, hey, we don't want this, I think to an extent they will listen. Now, listen, some of them lost their reelection bids and they're on their way out. So they might not care, right? And that's okay. That's only a small number. The majority still care that their constituents will vote for them again. So use your voice, make it heard, call, email, and let them know that you just don't want this. You want medical freedom. You want to be able to choose what's best for your child.
Yeah, because Michigan and all the swing states, we had a major shift. And I think I know some argue it wasn't a mandate, but it was surprising. I didn't think it would go this way. I think the country spoke on election day.
I think so too. They spoke very loudly, and you had quite a few organizations like ours really getting to work, knocking on doors, making phone calls, registering voters. We had just had enough, and we sat down and we said, what needs to get done? And so we did what needed to be done.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll put the information out there. And how can people follow you? What's the best way to keep up to date with your daily activities in the world?
Yeah, super easy. I post a lot actually, mostly on Instagram, but I do have a Facebook, a TikTok, and what's the X? I have X as well. I post
Wow.
as much as I can there.
Have you had any issues on Instagram or Facebook with these issues, or they haven't messed
I
with
mean,
you?
like a little bit. I guess you get to the point where you kind of learn how to say something or how not to say something. So, like instead of the word vaccination, you put the little shot thing. I don't know if they're
Yeah.
catching on to that one yet, but it stinks. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that soon with the new administration, these things will slowly start to change.
That would be nice because we just need the information out there. That's what it's about.
Yes.
Thank you for joining. We'll keep you updated. I'll bring you back on in January 1st. That's when this session is done, by the way, at the end of December 31st
Correct.
at midnight. That's when the Republicans would then take control next year in the House, right?
Yes, and we can't wait for that. And something I want to just add to really quick, Dave, for those of you thinking, okay, I don't have school age kids, this doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
Yeah, House Bill 6209 actually it specifically revises the Child Care Act. And so this is for business owners to provide vaccination status of employees. So it's very blurry. There's HIPAA violations there, there's privacy violations, but this is something they're trying to pass too. And basically, the business owner is supposed to be a tattletale on the employee is the way that they're setting it up.
And
And another part
that's
of it,
new.
yes,
That's new.
yeah, that's 6209. 6207 wants to take away funding if reporting requirements are not met. So if the schools are not telling on parents, they're going to pull your funding. That's 6207. There's one more. I forget which one that it is. Oh, 6208. It's revising the Child Care Act. So there's no exemptions for anybody working in a child care setting outside of the school setting, right? So child care like after school, before school. They're making it so that you have to be vaccinated, no exemptions. So that's one
So
of the
if I have
changes.
a home daycare, there's a couple, or there one in the neighborhood that would, and she has an LLC or a business. That would be
She
it.
has the license. She would have to get vaccinated. She has no options for exemptions, not
And for
even medical.
workers, she may have the same thing.
Same thing for them. So this
No
involves a
exemption.
whole multitude of people. So you got business owners, small business owners, their employees, you've got daycare workers, you've got school age kids, and then obviously parental rights are an issue here. So it's a whole plethora of major issues.
Jeez. Well, thank you for calling on all of that. I'm going to put it back out there. Thank you very much. Have a good holiday, and hopefully everything is quiet in Lansing until the beginning of the year.
We hope, right? Yes. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me, Dave. It's always a pleasure.